Hi, I'm Sandra Yancey, and you're watching Jennifer Beal with Business Unleashed TV.
Sandra Yancey is an international businesswoman, award-winning. She's written books, she has her own radio show, and she's a movie producer. She also supports women in being successful in life, and she has one of the largest women's networks in North America, eWomenNetwork. It has 30,000 members, and she has 500,000 people in her network. Her motto is, give first, share always. So, welcome to Business Unleashed TV. So glad to be here with you and meet you in person.
You know what, Jennifer? I'm thrilled to be here with you. I've heard all about you for a long time, and it's wonderful that we've gotten together here. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, networking is great, and we've met through our networks. Mm-hmm. And you have built one of the largest women's networks. It's absolutely incredible. But it wasn't an easy go, was it, getting there?
No, it wasn't.
And I think sometimes when people look at someone like you so successful, they think, wow, it must have been easy, and there she is, because you make it look so easy. Right. So share a little bit about the story.
Well, you know, I moved from, I'm a small town farm girl from Dayton, Ohio, mm-hmm. and I moved to Dallas, Texas, and I thought, oh my gosh, it was like a whole nother world when I moved there. And, you know, I'm first generation American, so my mother's from Mexico, she's a Lopez. My father's actually from Quebec, my maiden name's Goulet. They met in Detroit and ended up raising a family, starting a family in Dayton, Ohio. And very small town, and my father passed away on my birthday. He was killed in a car accident when I turned 5. So I was raised in a very Latina culture in our home by a single mom who, while she could speak English, she couldn't read it well enough to get a job. And so for a number of years I was raised on welfare. So I certainly don't have the pedigree of, you know, coming from a family that had a tremendous amount of success or a track record that I could jump on and learn from. When I moved to Dallas, I thought, oh, this is pretty amazing here. And I had my own consulting firm in Dayton. I was on a plane a lot because there weren't major corporations in Dayton, and my clients were like, you know, AT&T and Coca-Cola and Levi Strauss and et cetera. So, but when I moved to Dallas, I thought, oh my gosh, 10 miles from my house, Jennifer, was world headquarters for Frito-Lay and JCPenney's, and there was, you know, Texas Instruments, and I thought, I could build my practice here and be home with my small children in the evening. And the truth is that I started networking, and I found it to be a real good old boys club. And I say that with great high regard and respect and compliments to men, because what I saw them doing, I was in such admiration. Mm-hmm. Like, these guys got it going on. I mean, no wonder men are doing what they're doing. They're sharing with each other, and they're bringing
each other.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Bringing their proteges and making introductions. And while everyone was kind and sweet to me, I didn't feel like I was really in the game. You know, I felt like I was relegated more to the sidelines, and I wanted to play. And so I started going to women's groups, and I found them to be wonderful, but social in nature. And I thought, where are the women that want to build, you know, 6-figure and 7-figure, multi-million-dollar businesses? I know they exist. I know they're out there like me. You know, I know they just want to be, you know, compensated for the contribution that they're going to make with their products and services. And that really was the start of eWomenNetwork. I thought, you know what, I'll start my own. This is a business problem for me. I know it has to be a business problem for others, so I'll start it.
Great vision based on needs.
Yes,
needs you had, and then you went in and found other people with the same felt needs.
Exactly.
That's great, but it wasn't easy.
No, because it was an idea before its time. I mean, I learned a big lesson about this whole notion of timing. You know, the thing about timing is it's never early, right? And it's also never a minute late. And so you've got to remember, 1999, 2000 is when I actually opened my doors to my customers. It was pre-Google, pre-social media. You know, it was a very different time. And the concept, and the reason why it was E at the time, E stood for electronic, like email, right? We thought it would be the original and ideal Facebook kind of concept for women in business. But the problem was, Jennifer, is that people were still on dial-up. You know, and it was only plain text. There wasn't rich text. There was no color. There were no photos, right? There was no video. It was a very different time. And even today, with everything that we have, what we know about women's buying patterns are that they'll make an initial connection, often online, but they have to take it at a much more personal level. They value the eye-to-eye and the face-to-face because it helps them. There's still a lot of people on the internet that aren't necessarily who they say they are, and this helps us kind of test it with our sixth sense, right? And women are very loyal, but they do business with people they really know, like, and trust. And so I underestimated what women said in my focus groups, that they didn't want any more meetings, when in fact I started getting phone calls and saying, can you tell me who's around, you know, where I live? And I said, if I did, what would you do with that? And they said, well, I'd invite them over to my home, or we'd meet, you know, at a local coffee bar or something where we could get to know each other a little bit better. And I thought, I have to sell the way my customer buys. And so I had to really revisit my business model because my results were proving it true. I was robbing Peter to mug Paul. I mean, 2 years into eWomenNetwork, I was on the brink of bankruptcy and a nervous breakdown. I mean, I was so stressed over, and I kept throwing more money at it, thinking that would fix it. And what I realized was I didn't have to give up on my dream. I just had to give up on the way I was doing it.
Okay, so how did you figure out the right way to do it? Like, how did you fill the gap that you had between?
Well, I started talking to my customers. I mean, the thing I've learned is, and that's why I do a 30-city tour every year, is that your customers will always tell you what they want. You just have to be willing to ask and to listen, right? And so I remember, I do remember one day my mother calling me, just checking in on me, how was I doing? The kids were in the backyard, and I was really struggling. And I remember saying to her, you know, maybe what I should do is get a job and create a little bit of stability of income, because I was broke and my credit cards were maxed out. And I said, and then I'll do eWomenNetwork on the side. And she said, well, you know, you don't just get jobs, Sandra. You know, you get careers, and that's about a 20-hour difference on a 40-hour work week. You know, so when are you actually going to do eWomenNetwork if you're going to do it on the side? And I said, that's a really good question. My son was just 4 years old, my daughter just in 2nd grade, and you know, I said, well, maybe I ought to just quit and just table this for a while. And she said something, Jennifer, I'll never forget it. She said, very kind of, you know, cavalierly, she just said, well, let me ask you something, honey. How do you know you're not quitting 5 minutes before the miracle begins? And I said, gosh, I don't know. And she says, well, then I can tell you one thing. She says, honey, you can't quit, not right now. She says, I'm not saying don't quit. I'm just saying that if you quit, you have to know. Because if you don't know, you'll spend the rest of your life wondering. And I said, so what do I do? And she says, well, that I can't help you with, honey, except for this. She said, I know one thing. I raised a daughter smart enough to figure that out.
Wow, that's great.
And it was such a poignant moment for me. You know, I mean, just to know that she believed in me, because my self-esteem was eroding. I was second-guessing everything I was doing. I was starting to say, maybe all those critics out there were right. Maybe they could see something I couldn't. I mean, you could see just my little critical Christina in my head just gnawing away at my confidence, at my dream. And I just remember in a desperate moment calling a girlfriend of mine in Washington, D.C., Edie, who was running a multi-million-dollar business, and just saying, I need help. And she said, well, what's wrong? And I started telling her all the things that were wrong. And she said, Sandra, she said, I'd love to help you, girlfriend, but you got problems, and you do need help. And I'm not the one that can help you with all of them, except for this, you need a coach.
Oh, so she gave you some advice.
And you know, this was 2002, 2003. I was, I didn't even know what a coach was. I mean, you know, back then, coaching was really, you know, affiliated with sports. It wasn't, the business coaching concept wasn't what it is today. And so I was like, where do I find a coach, right? And I was actually at an airport, picked up a book and that I thought was, you know, I had a kitschy title to it. And I went to the back, and in the bio in the back said that she was a business coach. And I called her. And she said, I mean, this is back when you even called information, you know, on the phone. This is before Google, right? And she told me what she did, and I said, you know, so what would it cost? She said at the time it was $175 an hour. I mean, I didn't have $175 an hour. And I said, well, here's the thing. I'm a really great student. So if you will coach me, if you will teach me, I'm telling you, I will apply it, I will earn the money, and I will pay you. And she was like, it doesn't quite work that way, Sandra. You know, and she said, you've got to give me $175, and which was totally the right thing for her to say, right?
That's great, yeah.
And so I remember just thinking, how am I going to come up with this money? I don't know how to come up with this money. And I was actually folding clothes, you know, my kids' clothes, putting clothes aside that I needed a hanger for. I went upstairs, started ripping hangers out of my daughter's room of, oh, she's not wearing this anymore, she's outgrown this, she wore it once, said she hated it, she'll never wear it again. Before you knew it, I had a pile of clothes. I went, oh. I went to my daughter's room, I went to my own closet. Before I knew it, I had garbage bags of clothes, and I took it to a consignment shop. And it was a consignment shop that would give me, you know, the money right away, and then that was it, right? There's consignment shops that'll pay you as they sell, but this was one flat fee. She goes, I've got to go through all these bags. Why don't you walk around, come back in about 15, 20 minutes. I'm like, no problem. So I'm walking around, I come back, and she looks at it, she says, I'll give you $175.
Just as much as you needed.
It was a God wink. I was like, okay, this is exactly what I need. And it changed my life. It changed my life.
And that coach gave you what you needed.
She helped me see what I couldn't see. You know, it was there. It was like it was right here. It just, I couldn't see it. She could see it. And what she taught me was that I needed to give up all the administrivia. I had gotten so bogged down in the busyness of my business that I wasn't spending the time working on the things that make the cash register ring. And she made me prioritize my day based on what are all the things that I needed to do, and the important things were the things that made the cash register ring, and she helped me see that everything else was a distraction, and I needed to find other ways to get it done. And so I finally, and she challenged me. She said,
were you stressed? Like when she said that, you've got to give up all of this and your money's strapped?
I'm like, it's not like I can go out and hire people, I'm broke. And one of the things she said to me, which was very powerful, she says, would you be open to allowing some of the people that you have helped so much, some of your girlfriends that you have served in so many ways in their hour of need, would you be open to letting them know that you have an hour of need and that they can now come and serve you?
Was that hard?
And I was like, oh my gosh. Right? And a lot of it was getting my pride and ego out of the way, because I had gotten so caught up when people said, how are things going? Oh, it's great, it's wonderful. Yeah. When it wasn't, I was calling the phone company and saying, what's the least amount I have to pay, right? So I can keep the phones on and pay some on the electric bill, right? And, but I did. I realized that I wasn't alone. This is a natural phase that everyone goes through. And it wasn't about me taking advantage of them. It was me calling in a favor or asking for a favor. Because when I focused on the things that made the cash register ring, in very short order, I had cash to now hire and pay people to do the distractions.
And then you built your team around you.
Completely. My always team, I learned the difference between your always team, you know, the people that you need to tap into, you know, every single day. It starts out with a virtual assistant, you need a marketing person, you need a good banker, you need a good lawyer, right? You need a good coach, you need kind of your always, your solid, you know, 6, 7 people, right, that help you really focus on your business. And then you need your access team. Those are the people flying about 50,000 feet above you who are wildly more successful than you, right? And they may not even be in your same line of business, right, Jennifer? They may be in a completely different line of business, but they've got wisdom, because the fundamentals of building a multi-million-dollar business and being able to sustain it over time, right? The fundamentals are all the same. So it's about how can I learn from Mark Cuban 11 when I met him, one of 1,500 billionaires on the planet, right? How can I, and he owns, a basketball team, an NBA basketball team, he's on Shark Tank, right? He's in a completely different line of business than me. But how can I learn from him so that I can adapt what he's saying, instead of adopt it, change it, shift it a little bit and adapt it in my business. And Jennifer, actually that's been my secret to success. I tell everybody I don't have an original thought in my head really. I'm just a great student and a really good listener.
And so you're building your own network around you.
Exactly.
Give me some ideas of what you're doing to make that happen. How do you get those people wanting to be around you?
Well, I think first and foremost, we have to realize that we have to go where they are. I mean, if we're expecting them to come to us, that's not very likely, at least in the beginning. I mean, you have to find out kind of where they are. And then I believe you need to know how to create a really great conversation. And I think what happens oftentimes when we meet really successful people is that we get intimidated and we focus on how we're different. At least that's what was happening with me. I mean, it's like I couldn't focus on what they were telling me at the moment because I was thinking of what is my next best intelligent question that I can ask, versus just staying with the conversation. And I really have learned that, I look at the people that, I can pick up the phone and call. Matthew Knowles, who, is Beyonce's father, who was #1 in the world. A lot of people don't know this, Jennifer. He was #1 in the world selling medical equipment for Xerox when he quit his job to manage Beyonce and what became Destiny's Child, through her being, musical royalty. I mean, he managed her through 2012.
And he's in your network.
And yeah, I mean, he's in my cell. I mean, I can pick him up. I might even be able to call him tonight. You know what I mean?
And that came from having conversations, going and finding these people and being with them.
I was actually
connecting with them.
I was volunteering. I was giving my time for an organization a nonprofit for sex trafficking. They were doing a fundraiser with entrepreneurs, and so these entrepreneurs paid to the foundation and asked me if I would be the subject matter expert that would come in and give them words of wisdom, basically laser coaching for a session. And I said, sure, and I flew to Houston for it, and on my own dime. I mean, that was my way to give back, right? It was just, I always look for ways that I can make a little difference. And so I was flying to Houston for another meeting and ended up staying overnight. That's actually how it happened. I stayed overnight, and the building that we were in happened to be a building that Matthew Knowles owned. I had no idea Beyonce was from Houston. And he owned the building. And we were having a meeting, we'd finished early, and so we were just waiting around and just laughing and talking because I was waiting for an hour to leave to go to the airport because I was going home. And he was in the building, heard us laughing, and came in and said, what's going on here? And someone said, well, we rented this, office space today. This is a part of a fundraiser. And he said, so what do you all do? And we all said we're entrepreneurs. And he walked in. See, his head was just in the door. Right. But when we were entrepreneurs, he's an entrepreneur, right? And he walked, he says, I love entrepreneurs.
And be prepared to have a conversation at any given time, any place you end up being.
And he says, I'd love to take you on a tour. And before you knew it, we're walking around.
Spending time together.
And if you just learn to be other-focused, not star-struck, right? But, what drove you to do this? And what's been your biggest obstacle? And if you could wave a magic wand knowing what you know, what would you do differently? And, just genuine questions that allows them to shine, right? And often we meet people and we're either intimidated or we want to pitch them, here's my book, or I have an idea for you, without building the relationship first. And let me tell you, by the end of it all, I needed to leave. I actually needed to leave early. The tour wasn't done, but I needed to get to the airport. And when I was leaving, he said, do you have a card? And I gave him my card, and guess what happened?
He contacted you.
No, nothing.
Nothing.
Nothing. And that was a lesson for me. We often say, well, I gave him my card, so now we're waiting, right? I thought he was interested enough to ask me for my card. He's a very busy man. I waited a couple of weeks and I thought, let me reach out. Let me reach out. And so I did, but I reached out with I have an idea for someone you need to know. Because also in my network, just so happened, right, and yet no accident, right, that Ken Cragen, a Hollywood legend that orchestrated the We Are the World campaign and the largest humanitarian effort in the United States has been Hands Across America. And he was the organizer of all of that. And I met him by, again, showing up at a place where I was the speaker and I sat next to him. And I never knew him. But he and I became friends, and I thought Matthew and Ken need to know each other. So that was the way in which I reached out, as a way to serve him. Not, will you do something for me, but I think I have a valuable connection that could be of use to you. Long story short, bottom line is I asked Ken, would you like to meet Matthew? He said, I can't even believe you're bringing that up, Sandra. I was just talking about how I needed to meet Matthew. Right? Jennifer, you know as well as I do, this is not a coincidence. The universe doesn't work that way, right? I mean, this was all divine intervention.
And you meeting the opportunity and being prepared and being able to move. And so we just need to learn how to be better prepared when we're out and about, because you never know who you're going to meet.
So I jumped on it. I just said, how would the two of you like to meet backstage at my international conference? And they both said yes, because the answer is always no if you don't ask. I thought they'll just say, no, Sandra, why don't you just give us phone numbers? Which I could have done, but I just said, I knew Ken was coming to my conference. So I said, would you like to meet backstage? And maybe you'll even allow me to interview the two of you on the stage. And they both said yes.
That's great. That's just so rich with so much that we can all learn about how to make better connections.
It isn't what happened. Look at all the little things that made it happen, really, right? That every single one of us can do.
Yeah. On a final note,
yes,
one encouraging tip for any business person who's out there who maybe is just feeling the weight of it on them. And what would be one encouraging tip that you would give for them to keep going forward?
Oh, Jennifer, it's such a rich question that you've asked. I would say don't give up 5 minutes before the miracle begins, and show up. Find your tribe, find your network. No one makes it alone, right? And show up, and allow yourself to say, this is what I need help with. Get clear around what you need. People aren't going to be able to read your mind, and your chances of hitting the bullseye, if you're not specific, are greatly reduced. So be very specific when you show up in terms of what you need, what you're looking for. Serve others. Know that you have knowledge, you have gifts that other people are. There are other people out there I know that are looking for you right now. You are their answer, right? So show up and serve. It'll make you feel great. It'll lift your spirits, right? It'll lift your shoulders, and know that you will become. That is your attractor factor, and you will become magnetic to someone else. And before you know it, you will see the tides turn.
You are an amazing wealth of wisdom. I want to thank you for coming on and talking with us about all of this and sharing the stories that are just rich with so much that we can be doing to be better at connecting with other people and helping more people and being more successful in our lives. So thank you.
And I'm excited about us. I mean, I feel like this is the start, and I appreciate you for what you're doing. I'm honored that you reached out to me. You reached out to me, right? And here we are. I think the beginning of a really great friendship. I'm looking forward to getting to know you better and supporting you, Jennifer.
Thank you, and likewise. And for anybody who wants to reach you, just look down below and you can find the information on how to reach Sandra Yancey. Get in touch with her in the eWomen Network.
Thank you.